All right, we are back. Sorry, I just blew out my eardrums. We're back with episode two. And I had a whole line of themes I wanted to tackle with this season. And then after last week's episode, I decided to completely change everything. I wanted to talk about topics that are staying fresh in my mind. So we're going to be talking about the idea of reconnections, whether it's with people, places. Sorry, I had a soda before coming here. People, places, concepts, entities, whatever it may be. Um, I have experienced a lot of, let's call them journeys, to reconnect with people and places. And sometimes they've been good, sometimes they've been bad, sometimes they are something that even I look back on them, I remember them, and I feel like that was probably not the smartest thing to do, or I wish I didn't do it. But in a weird way, I'm glad I did. I'm going to get into that with today's episode. The two things we're talking about today is we're talking about an EP. I believe, if I'm correct, this is the first EP in a whole we've ever talked about. It's the first GoodKid EP from, I believe it's 2018. Like one of the most incredible indie bands of the late 2010s, right when indie rock was also just on its way out to becoming a full-fledged genre after its rise in the 2000s, 2010s. It's as early as the 2000s. Indie rock was a huge thing. It was born. I would argue born in the early 2000s in the Y2K era. And the other piece we're going to be talking about today is one of my very favorite comics, Murder Falcon. So a little synopsis of Murder Falcon is that you look at the cover, you skim through a few pages, and you see our character Jake and his friends Jimmy and Joanne. People just call him Joe. Uh, he gets this power to play metal. He plays on his guitar, he shreds, and through that he summons a falcon with a giant robotic arm that knows kung fu, and they fight demons. And that alone was just a really cool concept. Uh, that alone got me to read it. And I was pleasantly surprised when I went from the first page to the last page, and I got probably one of the most heartfelt journeys and incredible commentary on what it is to live as a human I've ever seen from a piece of media before. Not Dalen original words here, but to quote the foreword in the very first page. I literally had to write it down here just because I knew I would forget it. But Murder Falcon is a story of bravery. Bravery to make something bigger and greater than all the things that haunt us. And that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about memories, reconnecting with people and places, and the difficulties and challenges that come with that. So, I want to open up with the EP first to kind of set the scene, because the whole meat of this episode is going to really be Murder Falcon today. But 6-song track. It's 16 minutes. You can literally listen to it on a break at work, digest the whole EP in just a little Sam's Club break. And that's how I found GoodKid. Someone recommended me the EP. I was working at Sam's Club at the time. Sat down for my 15 and I listened to the whole thing. I was like, wow, that was really fast. And at the time, I had no idea what any of these songs were about, because they had just come out with this EP. I think it was 2019 when I found them. one of my friends who's a huge indie nerd, was really into the underground scene and stuff, had shown me this EP. I thank him a lot for that. He's shown me a lot of great music. But we're not talking about all the tracks. Funnily enough, I think we're talking about all but one track, which is pretty funny. Uh, but I want to start from the beginning, kind of set the scene, set the ground, lay us a foundation here with the opening song and the band's mascot, Nomu Kid, or the song track Nomu. And ultimately, it's a heartbreak song. You know, every band has got to have some kind of love song and then a heartbreak song, or like, man, it sucks liking people song. That's this song of the EP. It follows this idea of disconnection, where we're given a singer and presumably an ex-lover, of how they just, you can get the idea of something trying to be, them trying to make something work, even though their feelings are fleeting, they're fading away. It's just not there. The fire's not as bright anymore. It's not as much passion, and things are just falling apart. And in the second half of the song, you get this. I got this idea of an attempt to still make things work, like not just leaving it behind, moving on, because moving on, especially from a relationship, can be very difficult. And it's not just something you get over it in like a week, a month, a year, maybe a decade for some people. Like, I have found myself, you know, with previous relationships, memories will just pop in my head out of nowhere. You know, memories that I hold fondly, memories I don't hold fondly, and it kind of just plays through your head like a movie. And that just happens with everyone. Whether it's like, oh, remember that cool thing I did back then at the skate park? Or, you know, memories that are like, oh, that was really embarrassing, to like, man, I can't believe I did that, to, man, I can't believe I did that. What I'm trying to get at is, this is like, this is not exactly a heartbreak song in the sense of the relationship fading, but kind of like the realization that there is nothing to be done to save it. That realization there. And now our singer's left with these feelings that are still fading, but they still mean a lot to him. Right after that song, we go into the next track, Tell Me What You Know, which is my favorite track. It's my favorite song of the EP. And funnily enough, if we took Murder Falcon, like the whole theme of Murder Falcon, and kind of condensed it into a song, I don't think I could name a better song that encapsulates the idea of Murder Falcon than this song. Mainly with the idea of "You'll Always Find Me." That's the end. That's the final lyric of the song. "You'll always find me," which is this idea of when you meet someone, when you connect with someone, there is no way you'll ever lose them, whether we want to or not. The song, Tell Me You Know, goes on about this man going on through his life, and he meets a friend or someone he liked, or whoever it is. After every chorus, he goes on to talk about how he's moved up in the world, climbed the ladder, grown as a person, changed physically, changed emotionally, everything. And he keeps running into this person who at times he's glad to see, at times he's not glad to see, and then on other times he doesn't know how he feels. Like lines like, "I'm moving to LA and writing a screenplay. Sorry we didn't talk much. It's not that I didn't want to, you just caught me unaware." The song speaks very heavily to what I talked about last week, where when you make a connection with someone, it's something that lasts forever. You don't just lose it. You don't just forget that person. They're there forever. And this song perfectly encapsulates that, where they just keep running back into each other. And at the end of the song, he even admits it, being, no matter what's going on, you'll always find me. Showing that people just pop back up into your life, whether it's through, you know, accidentally remembering something, or they just pop in front of your feet. Witches is not a song I'm talking about for its lyrics, but for how it came to be, where it's originally was written in the Wales. Uh, if you notice a little bit, there's a lot of Welsh folklore in this album. Actually, well, for 15 minutes, there's a good amount. This song was written when the lead singer was in Wales, and they leave the Wales, do their whole music stuff. 6 years later, they go on a tour to the Wales, and the lead singer goes up on stage to say, "It's like, I wrote this song when I was right here in the Wales. I was so astonished by the scenery, the hills, the grasslands, the plains, and it's very magical to be here again 6 years later to sing the song in the very place that birthed it." There's nothing deep about that, but there's something nice about, places to us. Like, everyone has a place that they frequent, like a coffee shop you go to every morning, or like maybe a bar that we go to after work during our shifts, or it could be something as simple as one of my favorite places I remember fondly of was the short time I was in college. In the dorms, there was a little patio area where me and my buddy would go after class and just smoke a cigarette. It was just a little corner out the flight of the stairs, nothing special. 2 minutes a day, smoke a cigarette, and call it there. But I wouldn't be lying if I said I didn't miss that place. Yeah, I could light a cigarette and smoke with my friends anywhere here in Santa Fe, but there was something really special about that little corner. And I feel like not enough people take the time to appreciate the places they've been to. Just as much as we appreciate people, I think we should also appreciate the settings, the places that, harbored those events, those connections being made, the connection to the world we literally put our 2 feet on. That's what I really liked about the idea of witches. Faster is, I'd like to call this a two-parter song because it plays into the last track of the album, Atlas. Faster, I was talking about this to a friend, and, we decided our favorite thing is to go on to Lyric Genius. If anyone here is familiar with that website, it's usually very hit or miss about lyric analysis. You either get, like, something that's really spot on about the song, or you'll see lyric annotations that are just, this guy did not listen to the same song as me. But regardless, he told me he got the feeling of someone going through a rough time, and it's being made easier by having a friend at his side. I didn't quite agree with that with this song. Because to me, it felt a little too nostalgic. I hate using that word, but it's the best word I have for this. It's mainly because in the chorus goes on, "This time I will remember to go faster. This time I won't forget." And that gives me a sense of something that's already passed on, that's already happened, something that's already been experienced. And it's kind of weird. It's mainly feels like the whole song is about memories, about kind of like this idea of, this time I'll get it right, this time I won't mess up, this time I'll do better. About someone having, these memories run faster through their head when they come up without us even wanting them to. They kind of just play like a movie in our head. Just snap like that. They pop up. I've talked a lot about memories so far, and we're about to get into the meat of it. Don't worry. Atlas. final song of the track, final song of the EP, the first GoodKid EP. If anyone here is not familiar, the whole mythology behind Atlas is a man who bears the burden of carrying the entire earth on his shoulders, on his back, essentially, with his hands, and he does that for his whole life, in a bare sense. I'm not going to get into the intricacies of mythology here. That's not what this podcast is about. But it plays this funny concept of it doesn't talk about Atlas at all or that mythology at all. It talks about the struggle to put something down, to let go of something, even if we really, really want to. Because about 80% of this song is one lyric just going, 1,000 times I've tried to put it down, 1,000 times I've tried to let it alone. What does that have to do with memories? What does that have to do with reconnections? To me, we've all had moments like maybe we've seen a story on someone's social media and we're like, oh, I should shoot them a text. Or, you're talking about a friend that's not there and you're like, oh man, I wonder how he's doing. Or maybe something went bad with a friend or a lover or whatever. And you're like, you know what? Let's shoot them a text. See how they're doing. See if they're doing okay. Maybe they still hate me. Whatever that may be, whether it's something as small as that or something grander. Little things like that pop up in all of our lives. If you've ever, talked to people, hung out with people. Of course, as we go on through life, we develop memories of these connections. I like the idea of Atlas is that it portrays that what makes up this metaphysical world of ours in our head is made up of the idea of memories. And sometimes these memories are good. Sometimes these memories suck. And I mean, they really suck sometimes. And to talk more about that and the idea of reconnections, I want to talk about Murder Falcon. As I said earlier, Murder Falcon is this dude gains the power to fight demons by playing metal on his guitar with his giant falcon that knows kung fu, has a giant metal arm. And before I get into the bones of this, I just want to flash at the camera here. This art is sick. This is some of the coolest drawings I've ever seen. Oh god, I'm so obsessed with this book. But we open up with Jake. He's sitting down at a bench. One of his old bandmates come up, and they're like, "Oh, dude, how you doing?" And he's like, "I'm not doing so good, man." And, of course, they chat, being like, "You still play music? You ever thought about getting the band back together?" And he's like, "No, I don't think I can do that." And it's very quick, but he gets back to his guitar, his broken guitar at his apartment. He's just remembering all the good memories of when he was in the band. Bruticus. Bruticus is the name of the band. And what happens is he gets jumped by a demon in his apartment. Gets jumped by a demon. His guitar magically gets fixed. He summons the Falcon, and he learns that he's been chosen to save the world from demons by playing metal. And granted, that's the overall story of Murder Falcon. I don't care about the story. I want to tell you about the theme of the story, where it's a story about Jake, who's literally lost everything. He's lost his friends. He's lost his band. He's lost his fame. He's lost his wife. And he's lost his passion for music. He has nothing. He is a husk. And he thinks about it all the time. The music, his friends, his wife, and everyone. And people are constantly telling him to get back up on the horse, to get to it. And Jake just goes, why bother? There's no point. Everything's gone. And if I do get back to it, it'll all just fizzle away. And then we get Murph, also known as Murder Falcon. I'm going to call him Murph for the rest of the episode, who is supposed to act as that little voice in the back of your head that tells you maybe you should try again. Maybe you should pick up the guitar again. Maybe you should send that text message to your friend you haven't seen in forever. Maybe you should go back to that coffee shop you haven't been to in a while. He is the sole motivator for Jake. He's supposed to represent this idea of, the hope and bravery and challenges that comes with reconnecting with these painful memories, these things that can hurt us, essentially. And you have to keep popping up constantly in our life, which is a subject that happens here. The first thing Jake does is he reconnects with his friends. He reconnects with his old bandmates, Joe and Jimmy, gets with them, and we're slowly trickled in on what happened to Jake, where his wife dies. And that's what led him to crashing out, breaking his guitar, standing them up for a show that would have gotten them a record label, and just losing everything, the loss of his wife. And so we go on this journey of him reconnecting with his friends, reconnecting with his passion for music, and growing closer to his new friend, Murph. And now we get about to the halfway segment of the comic, which it drops the most insane reveal I've read in a while, where it leads us on to believe that the reason Jake stopped playing music and gave up everything was because he lost his wife. And I want to say it's issue 3 or 4 that's revealed, where it ends on a panel, like a few panels of him at the hospital, where it's showing the diagnosis his wife gets, and then it ends with him getting a blood. It's telling them that the wife has brain cancer, but it ends with a panel of him getting a blood test instead, showing that he actually has brain cancer. And the next page is him at a cabin hugging his wife. And it kind of threw me for a whole loop, where it just shows the reason he gave up everything, the reason he threw away everything, was because he's gonna die soon. And so he thought, what is the point of keeping any of this, working to keep all this stuff, music, friendships, my relationship, all that, if I'm just gonna die in the next few months? That was the whole thing with Jake. And I think everyone can relate to that when we lose something. It's just like we're all hit with that why bother thought. It is at this point of the story they find a way to, fight back on the demons with this thing called the Horn of the Dead, which is supposedly supposed to be something. This giant horn that they blow into, and it summons all the legendary rock and roll, heavy metal artists to fight demons. And you get to this beautiful sequence here, where at the end of the comic, Jake gets to the horn, he blows the horn, and it just fades to black. It's black. It's just Jake and Murph there. And you have this guy in a wheelchair who can't speak. He has to do the whole, I point thing to a board of letters, which is them making chords on a computer. And that's when they realize the Horn of the Dead does not call back to the dead, but it's calls to all those who are destined to die. And despite that, people still choose to sing into the void. Despite how painful these things can be for us, the things that bring us joy, the things that bring us happiness, and I've talked about this before on previous episodes, is that it can be very painful. It can bring a lot of painful things to you, whether they're good or bad. And what's really important here is that despite Jake going on this journey to save the world, to help his friends, to reconnect with his wife, the focus of this story is how he reignites his passion for music. He uses that as a tool to want to establish friendships and to make something bigger than himself, which is saving the world in this instance. Despite all these people and other elements involved in this comic and this journey for Jake and Murph, Jake takes every moment to look back on himself and to tell himself, I'm glad I got back into music. I'm glad I got my band back together. I'm glad I got back with my wife. I feel like a very important thing when it comes to reconnecting and these memories is that I am a huge believer that these kinds of ideas are more of a personal journey than anything, because the person that is impacted most in any of these sequences of events is you. You, the person that wants to reconnect, whether it's a place, a person, concept, music, art, reading, coffee, whatever the hell it is, man. It's all a very personal thing because it's this little world we craft for ourselves. Oh, I forgot to put a page here. But what I'm trying to get at is what's really fascinating about all this is just this idea, especially why I'm talking about GoodKid here, is that what makes the world for us are the memories we hold. And before I get into like the little closing sequence here, because I am going to forget it, I'm going to leave us off with our recommendation. I'm doing it a little bit earlier than I usually do. But I feel bad. I always forget the name of this artist, but the link will be down in the YouTube channel. Feelings Are Fatal. And I feel like it's a very appropriate thing, a very appropriate song, because as important as it is to reconnect with people and how they can make the whole world for us, at the same time, these feelings can have the opposite effects. This is something I want to graze upon real quick before we close out here, which is we hold these connections forever. We have these memories until the day we die. And sometimes I want to urge caution with these, that sometimes these feelings can be fatal. They can lead to do more harm than good. Like, sit with yourself for a second and tell yourself, is this a healthy thing for me to do? Or if I choose to pursue this, will this be healthy for everyone involved? Because the last thing I want for you is for your world to come crashing down because you decide to go on a little journey, to visit someone, a place, whatever it is. That's kind of what the whole EP loosely talks about, the GoodKid EP. The goods and the bad of these memories, reconnecting. Because sometimes it can happen without us even realizing. And so we craft this world based off all of our memories. And we're all going to inevitably die. We're all going to suffer as we live, experience joy, feel a lot of pain. And for Jake, he comes to realize that despite all that suffering, we need to carry that. We need to carry that into the world that's made up of our memories. Just like the burden of Atlas, who's cursed for all of his life to hold the burden of the world on his shoulders. And that's the same for everyone. We're burdened to carry this world until the day we die. Our personal worlds. And so with that, hope you all enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.